Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to wire an in-cab switch for your winch. If you're new here, welcome to my channel and don't forget to subscribe. So I'm going to be wiring this in-cab switch into my Jeep Wrangler, but you can do it with virtually any vehicle that has a winch mounted to it. So I've laid out on the table pretty much everything that we're going to use today. We've got some wire, I've got some electrical tools, as well as my multimeter. I also have some of these connectors here, as well as my switches. Now this switch is pretty nice. It's got winch in and winch out on it. I picked this up on Amazon. It was relatively inexpensive. It also comes with some directions and some wiring methods on there if you're unsure, as well as some wiring, which I think is great. Now you're also going to want a secondary switch. Now this switch here, you're going to run power through this switch to supply power to your winch switch. And the reason you want to do that is for safety. You're not going to be having an issue where you're hitting this switch by accident and having it activate the winch. A lot of people would recommend using like a bomber switch or something that covers this and leaves it protected so you're not accidentally leaving it on. Whatever you decide to do, I do highly recommend you get one that has a little LED light in it, or one that you can wire to an LED light. So it's a dummy light, so you always know when it's on. So because I am going to be installing this into my Jeep Wrangler here, I picked up this cheap switch panel. This just replaces your vent. So you pull out your vent, you stick this in there, and it'll hold two switches. If you are interested in anything here, I'm going to go ahead and put links in the description below. Make sure you check them out. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the negative cable from our battery. The next thing we're going to do is pull apart our relay box here. Now I went ahead and mounted mine on top of the winch. Yours might be mounted underneath the hood somewhere, but we're going to need inside of it so that we can access the wires. As far as I can go. So now that we've got our box pulled apart here, we can see that we actually only have 3 wires, and we can tell that this red one is obviously the power wire, and then we have a blue wire and a green wire. Now one of these will be your cycle in and one will be your cycle out. Now if you want, you can take your multimeter and find out which one is your out and your in. Honestly, I think it'll just be much easier to wire up our switch, and then if it ends up being reversed, we'll just reverse the wires on our switch. Next, I'm going to go ahead and just run some wiring from here into my cab. Now when you're running your wiring, you should only need 2 wires that actually run all the way to your winch. So you're going to run 2 wires to your winch, and then you're going to want 1 hot wire coming off your battery into the cab. Now because I'm going to be running my wiring up to these vents right here, I'm going to have to remove all this paneling here so I can run my wiring. So I'm going to get on that real quick, and then we'll hop to the wiring. So now that we have our 2 wires running from our winch inside the cab, we can go ahead and attach those 2 wires to the corresponding wires on the winch. Now we know that this one here, this red one, is a power wire. So we're just going to attach these 2 wires that we brought in to these 2 wires here. Now I'm usually partial to solder. You can attach it however you want, but what I highly recommend is that you solder these connections on. So just go ahead and either splice this in and solder it, or cut them and solder it. Also, don't forget, because you're bringing wiring in, you want to make sure that you notch your box a little bit. That way your wiring will fit in there just fine. If I'm worried about water getting in there, I can always just put some silicone on there and call it good. So now that we have our winch wires coming into the cab, as well as our power from the battery, we're going to go ahead and start wiring up our switches. Now you want to run power to your first switch and then loop through that to your winch switch. Now you can put them right next to each other. I'm going to put them kind of far away just because I already have locations for where I want my switches to be. Now you want to make sure your power from your battery is fused for your switches, because it does loop all the way around back to your winch. You don't want any problems. So I'm just mounting my fuse right here behind the panel that my switch is going to attach to. You're also going to want a ground, because once again, we're using an illuminated switch. That way when your switch is turned on, it will illuminate this light. So now that we have our wiring for our power switch done, we can start wiring our winch switch. Now I've ran my wires up through into my vent here because I am using a vent switch panel. And we're going to have 4 wires that need to come in. We're going to have our ground. We're going to have our ground. We're going to have our power wire. In this case, mine is blue. And then we have our 2 wires that run to our winch. So I'm going to go ahead and splice in the wires that they gave me for my switch. And then we'll test the switch out. So I've got my switch here. I'm going to go ahead and connect some of these wires. I'm going to connect my power wire where it says to on the instructions, and I'm going to connect one of the wires that runs to my winch. Now with our battery connected and a couple of our wires connected to our switch here, we can go ahead and test out our switch. So it looks like this one here is our out, so we're all set. We just need to connect our other wires. If you hook this up and your out goes in and your in goes out, all you got to do is switch your wires on your switch. So that is it. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Please check me out on Instagram at It's Project Venture. Chances are, if you follow me, I'll follow you back. I really like looking at everybody's rigs. It's great to see all the different types of rigs out there. Thanks for watching.